Li Hyun stood in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council and felt the weight of 1,000 hostile eyes upon him. The circular room stretched far above his head, with seats arranged in rings that climbed toward a domed ceiling made of clear crystal. Through that crystal, he could see the stars of the galaxy that had become humanity's new home over the past 2 centuries. Those same stars now seemed cold and distant as alien voices filled the air with angry words about his species. The human ambassador wore simple dark robes that marked him as a representative of Earth and her colonies. His black hair was cut short in the military style that most humans preferred, and his face showed no emotion as he listened to the accusations being thrown at his people. Around him sat the representatives of dozens of alien species, and most of them looked at him with expressions that ranged from distrust to open hatred. Council leader Velthar rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. The tall reptilian alien had scales that shifted color from green to blue when he was angry, and right now those scales were almost purple. His voice boomed through the chamber as he spoke in the common galactic language that all species were required to learn. The human expansion continues at a rate that threatens the stability of our peaceful galaxy, Velthar declared, while his long, clawed fingers pointed at a holographic display that showed human colonies spreading across star systems like dots of red light. In the past 50 years alone, they have established settlements on over 300 worlds, and their merchant ships travel every major trade route in Council space. Murmurs of agreement came from the assembled aliens. The Vorthak delegation nodded their massive heads in approval while their tusks gleamed under the chamber lights. These warrior aliens had controlled the largest military force in the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and they did not like seeing humans moving so freely through space that they considered their territory. Their representative, War Commander Gex, slammed his fist on his desk and spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Human ships carry weapons that they claim are for defense against pirates, but our intelligence suggests they are capable of much more. Gex growled while his small red eyes fixed on Li Hyun. We have reports of human vessels refusing inspection by Council security forces, and their colonies maintain communication networks that use encryption we cannot break. The Nexari representative spoke next, and her crystalline voice carried across the chamber with perfect clarity. The Nexari were beings of living metal and crystal who had mastered technology beyond what most species could understand. Their delegate Prime Node Xeris had sensors instead of eyes, and when she focused them on Li Hyun, he could feel them scanning him for any sign of deception. Human technological development proceeds at an unprecedented rate, Xeris stated, while data streams flowed across her metallic surface. They reverse engineer our equipment with disturbing efficiency and create hybrid technologies that combine multiple species advances in ways we did not think possible. This suggests either hidden knowledge or assistance from unknown sources. Li Hyun remained silent as more accusations filled the air. The aliens spoke of human mining operations that dug too deep and human research stations that studied things they claimed were beyond human understanding. They complained about human diplomats who asked too many questions and human traders who seemed to know more about alien politics than they should. Every word was carefully chosen to paint humanity as a growing threat that needed to be controlled, before it became too powerful to stop. The debate continued for hours as representatives from dozens of species added their voices to the chorus of concern about human activities. The peaceful Zentari worried about human military exercises near their borders, while the merchant Korvan complained about human trade practices that were cutting into their profits. Even species that had been friendly to humanity in the past now spoke of incidents that made them question human intentions. Through it all, Li Hyun stood perfectly still and listened to every word. His expression never changed, and he showed no reaction to even the most serious accusations. Inside his mind, however, he was recording everything and sending coded signals through the neural implant that connected him to the communication network that linked every human settlement across the galaxy. The aliens thought they were debating humanity's fate, but they had no idea that their every word was being transmitted to Earth within seconds. On the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, Harmony Captain Park Soo received the transmission from the Council chamber and immediately began encoding it for transmission to Earth. The Harmony looked like any other diplomatic ship with its sleek hull and peaceful markings, but hidden beneath its outer shell were systems that would surprise any alien who managed to scan them properly. Park Soo had served in the human fleet for 20 years and knew that the Harmony was far more than it appeared to be. The encrypted message reached Earth in less than an hour, where Defense Minister Kim Jae sat in his office deep beneath the surface of the planet. The office looked simple with its wooden desk and old books, but the walls contained screens that showed the location of every human ship in the galaxy and the status of defensive systems that most humans did not even know existed. Kim Jae read the message from the Council chamber and immediately activated Protocol 7. Across human space, the activation of Protocol 7 sent signals to thousands of people who had been waiting for this moment for decades. Ship captains received new orders while planetary governors activated emergency plans that had been prepared years ago. Factory workers began converting civilian equipment to military specifications, while communications officers started broadcasting on frequencies that had never been used before. To any alien observer, it would look like routine maintenance and normal business, but humanity was preparing for war. Back in the council chamber, Velthar finally called for order, and the various alien voices fell silent. The reptilian leader looked down at Lee Hyun with undisguised contempt and spoke in a tone that suggested the matter had already been decided. The council has heard enough evidence to conclude that human expansion poses a clear threat to galactic security, Velthar announced while his scales shifted to a deeper shade of purple. Therefore, we are implementing new security measures that will bring human activities under proper supervision. The measures that followed were designed to cripple human independence without actually declaring war. Human ships would be required to carry council observers on all journeys, and human colonies would submit to regular inspections by alien security forces. Human communication networks would be monitored, and human research projects would require council approval before they could proceed. Trade restrictions would limit what humans could buy and sell, while new taxes would drain the resources of human settlements. Lee Hyun listened to each restriction being announced and knew that the aliens expected him to object or plead for mercy. Instead, he simply nodded and spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. The human delegation acknowledges the council's concerns and will cooperate fully with these new security measures, he said in a calm voice that carried no trace of emotion. We understand that our rapid growth has caused anxiety among other species, and we wish to be good neighbors in this galaxy we all share. The aliens looked surprised by his easy acceptance of their demands. They had expected protests or threats, but instead the human ambassador seemed almost grateful for their intervention. Velthar studied Lee Hyun's face for any sign of deception, but found nothing except polite agreement. The council is pleased by humanity's reasonable response, Velthar said while his scales slowly returned to their normal green color. Implementation of these measures will begin immediately, and we expect full compliance from all human settlements. Lee Hyun bowed deeply and spoke words that would be remembered long after this day had passed. Humanity has always believed that the garden grows best when tended by careful hands, he said, while looking directly at Velthar. We are ready for the harvest. To the aliens, these words seemed like simple acceptance of their authority, but every human listening knew they had just heard the activation phrase for humanity's greatest secret. Across the galaxy, human ships began changing course, while hidden facilities came online and defensive systems that had been disguised as civilian equipment revealed their true purpose. The council session ended with the aliens congratulating themselves on solving the human problem without bloodshed. They believed they had successfully contained a growing threat and prevented a future war. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many of them spoke of how easily the humans had surrendered and how this proved that humanity was not as dangerous as some had feared. Lee Hyun remained in the chamber until all the aliens had left and then activated his personal communicator. The message he sent was brief, but it reached every human settlement within hours. The garden is ready for harvest. Commander Choi Min guided her ship Silent Arrow through the darkness between stars, while her crew worked quietly at their stations. The stealth vessel moved without any lights or energy signatures that might betray its presence to alien sensors. From the outside, it looked like empty space, but inside the ship, 20 of humanity's best intelligence officers monitored every alien communication in this sector of the galaxy. The Silent Arrow had been built specifically for missions like this. 1. Its hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them back, and its engines produced almost no heat signature. Even its life support systems had been designed to operate so quietly that alien listening posts could not detect them. For 3 weeks, the ship had been following Vorthak fleet movements, and what Choi Min had discovered made her stomach tight, with worry. "Commander, the latest intercepts confirm what we suspected," reported Lieutenant Yu Na from her position at the communications station. "The Vorthak are moving their entire 3rd battle fleet toward human space under the cover of training exercises." Choi Min studied the tactical display that showed red dots representing Vorthak warships moving in formation toward the outer human colonies. Each dot represented a massive vessel capable of destroying an entire planet, and there were over 200 of them in this fleet alone. The official reports claimed they were conducting routine military drills, but their course would bring them dangerously close to New Busan and the other industrial worlds that powered human civilization. "What about their communications?" Choi Min asked while keeping her voice low, even though no alien could possibly hear them. "Are they still using the standard military frequencies?" "Yes, Commander. But there is something strange," Yu Na replied while adjusting her headset. "They keep mentioning something called Operation Sunrise, and they seem very excited about it. The time frame suggests they plan to begin whatever it is within the next few days. The information confirmed what human intelligence had suspected for months. The Council's new security measures were not really about protecting galactic peace, but were instead preparation for a military action against human settlements. The Vorthak had never accepted humanity as an equal species, and now they saw an opportunity to solve what they called the human problem permanently. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of New Busan, engineer Yun Tai walked through the massive shipyards, where hundreds of vessels were being prepared for departure. To any casual observer, the ships looked like standard cargo haulers and mining vessels that carried goods between human colonies. The workers loading supplies seemed relaxed, and the captains checking their flight plans showed no signs of unusual stress. Everything appeared completely normal for a busy commercial spaceport. But Yun-tae knew the truth about what was happening in these shipyards. Inside each apparently harmless cargo vessel, teams of technicians were installing equipment that would transform these civilian ships into powerful warships within minutes. Hidden compartments contained weapon systems, while reinforced sections of hull could deploy armor plating that would protect against even heavy alien fire. "How many ships will be ready by tomorrow?" Yun-tae asked Captain Han Bo, who was supervising the loading of his vessel, Peaceful Trader. The ship looked exactly like the thousands of other cargo haulers that traveled between human worlds every day, but its manifest listed supplies that would never be found in any normal trade shipment. "All 60 vessels in this group will depart on schedule," Hanbo replied while watching his crew secure containers that contained missile launchers disguised as industrial equipment. "The crews have been briefed, and every captain knows their role in the operation." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement that echoed across the shipyard. All personnel were ordered to report to their stations immediately for departure preparation. To anyone listening, it sounded like routine scheduling, but Yun-tae recognized the coded language that meant Protocol 7 had been activated. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of human worlds. Ship captains who had spent years pretending to be simple merchants received orders that activated their true military ranks. Cargo vessels that had hauled grain and manufactured goods suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Space stations that had appeared to be peaceful. Research facilities began deploying defensive systems that had been concealed for decades. On the supposedly abandoned mining station, Defenders Rest Admiral Kang Woo coordinated the massive operation from a command center that few humans knew existed. The station had been officially decommissioned 5 years ago after the asteroid belt it was mining had been declared exhausted. But the mining had never stopped, and the ore being extracted was not going to commercial buyers, but to secret military factories hidden throughout human space. "Report from all sectors," Admiral Kang ordered while studying displays that showed the position of every human ship within 50 light years. The screens revealed a network of vessels and installations that formed a defensive grid around every major human settlement. Sector 7 reports all sleeper vessels are operational, came the response from his communications officer. Captain Song Ai confirms that her convoy of grain haulers is ready to deploy, and Captain Bei Sion reports his mining fleet can be combat-ready within 30 minutes. The reports continued as similar confirmations arrived from every corner of human space. What the aliens saw as scattered civilian traffic was actually a carefully coordinated military force that had been building in secret for over 50 years. Every cargo run had carried military supplies along with commercial goods, and every seemingly peaceful settlement contained defensive installations that could protect entire star systems. Admiral Kang had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. He had joined the human fleet as a young officer when humanity first encountered alien civilizations, and had immediately recognized that his species would eventually face a choice between submission and war. The aliens had superior technology and vastly larger populations, but humans had advantages that their enemies did not recognize. "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from the Nexari monitoring stations," reported the sensor officer. "They have detected increased human ship movements, but their analysis suggests we are simply responding to the new Council security requirements." This news brought a grim smile to Admiral Kang's face. The Nexari prided themselves on their superior intelligence and advanced sensors, but they were seeing exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Every human ship movement had been carefully planned to appear like compliance with alien demands while actually positioning forces for maximum tactical advantage. The Nexari were not the only aliens who were being deceived by human activities. On their crystal homeworld, the Nexari High Command reviewed reports of human behavior and concluded that the troublesome species was finally accepting its proper place in the galactic order. The humans were submitting to inspection and allowing alien observers aboard their vessels, just as the Council had demanded. What the Nexari observers did not realize was that the humans they were watching were specially trained intelligence officers who fed them carefully prepared information. The human ships they inspected had been modified to hide their true capabilities behind panels that looked like ordinary cargo holds. The human settlements they visited contained hidden facilities that were completely invisible to their advanced sensors. Back on New Busan, the final preparations were being completed as Yuntai watched the last of the converted vessels depart for their assigned positions. Each ship would take its place in what appeared to be normal commercial traffic, while actually forming part of humanity's secret defensive network. The aliens would see cargo haulers and passenger transports, but they would be looking at cruisers and destroyers that could deploy for battle at a moment's notice. "The transformation is complete," Yuntai reported to his superiors on Earth. "Every vessel has been equipped according to specifications and all crews have confirmed their readiness." The response came back immediately from Defense Minister Kim Jae himself. The message was brief, but its meaning was clear to everyone who received it. Release the hounds. Across human space, the order was received and acknowledged by thousands of ship captains who had spent years preparing for this moment. Vessels that had appeared harmless began subtle course changes that would bring them into optimal positions for combat. Space stations that had seemed abandoned suddenly came alive with activity as their crews emerged from hidden sections and began activating systems that had been dormant for years. The aliens continued to monitor human communications, but they heard only routine traffic control messages and standard commercial broadcasts. They had no idea that humanity was using a sophisticated code system that had been developed over decades of careful planning. Every apparently innocent conversation contained multiple layers of hidden meaning that allowed human forces to coordinate their movements without arousing suspicion. Admiral Kang watched the tactical displays as his forces moved into position and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because humanity had successfully maintained its greatest secret for over half a century, and sadness because that secret was about to be revealed in the worst possible way. War Commander Gex stood on the bridge of his flagship Bone Crusher and watched the human colony of New Sol grow larger on his main screen. The planet looked peaceful with its blue oceans and white clouds, but intelligence reports suggested it was one of the most important human industrial centers in this sector. His orders were simple and direct. establish a blockade around the planet, and force the humans to accept Vorthak oversight of their operations. The third battle fleet had approached New Sol expecting to find a few lightly armed patrol vessels, and perhaps some converted civilian ships trying to look threatening. What they actually encountered was Captain Nam's son commanding a vessel that appeared to be nothing more than a standard transport ship called Morning Star. The ship's hull showed the wear of years of commercial service, and its energy readings suggested minimal weapons and basic shields. "Hail the human vessel," Gex ordered, while his bridge crew prepared for what they expected to be a brief conversation followed by easy surrender. "Tell them that New Sol is now under Vorthak protection, and all human ships must submit to inspection." The response came back within minutes, and Captain Nam's face appeared on the main screen. She looked like any other human merchant captain with her simple uniform and tired expression. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke to the massive alien fleet that surrounded her apparently helpless ship. "War Commander, this is Captain Nam, son of the transport vessel Morning Star," she said, while looking directly into the camera. "I have been authorized to respond to your demands on behalf of all human forces in this system." Gex felt satisfaction at how easily the humans were surrendering. His tusks gleamed as he prepared to give the orders that would begin Vorthak control of human space. But something in the human captain's eyes made him pause, and when she spoke again, her tone had changed completely. "I am also authorized to inform you that your presence here constitutes an act of war against the Human Defense Alliance." Nam continued, while her image remained perfectly steady on the screen. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces or face the consequences." The Vorthak bridge crew burst into laughter at this apparent joke. A single human transport ship was threatening an entire battle fleet equipped with enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. Gex was about to order his gunners to disable the foolish human vessel when the Morning Star began to change. Panels along the ship's hull slid open to reveal weapon ports that had been completely hidden moments before. The cargo sections deployed to become armored shields, while the engine housing extended to show the massive drives of a heavy cruiser. Within seconds, the harmless transport had transformed into a warship that rivaled anything in the Vorthak fleet. "Impossible," Gex whispered while his sensors confirmed what his eyes could hardly believe. The Morning Star was now reading as a fully armed military vessel with weapons systems that matched or exceeded anything his own ships carried. But the transformation was only beginning. From the asteroid belt that surrounded New Sol came signals that Gex's sensors had dismissed as routine mining operations. The asteroids themselves began to move and deploy structures that revealed them to be massive defense platforms. What had appeared to be simple mining equipment unfolded into railgun batteries and missile launchers that could engage multiple targets simultaneously. Fleet Admiral O-Min appeared on the communications screen next to Captain Nam, and his expression showed the confidence of a commander who held all the advantages. Behind him, Gex could see the bridge of a command ship that had been hidden among the asteroids for who knew how long. "War Commander, you are now surrounded by the asteroid defense grid," Admiral O announced, while tactical displays showed dozens of hidden installations coming online. "Your fleet is outnumbered and outgunned, but we are prepared to allow you to withdraw if you leave immediately." The scope of the deception was staggering. Gex realized that his intelligence reports had been completely wrong about human defensive capabilities. What appeared to be a lightly defended industrial world was actually a fortress that could destroy his entire fleet. But before he could respond to this shocking revelation, more human vessels began appearing from everywhere at once. Captain Bay Sion led a squadron of ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers carrying grain to the outer settlements. The moment they received Admiral O's signal, their cargo holds ejected grain containers that had been hiding weapon systems underneath. Within minutes, a convoy of merchant vessels had become a formation of fast attack craft that moved to cut off any Vorthak retreat. Commander Ryu Huan coordinated the defense from what the Vorthak had believed was an agricultural research station. The station's domes and cultivation areas suddenly revealed themselves to be concealed weapon turrets and shield generators. The peaceful research facility was actually a battle station that commanded the entire approach to New Sol. Across the New Sol system, the pattern repeated as every human installation revealed its true nature. Mining ships deployed hidden armor and weapons, while research vessels launched fighter squadrons that had been concealed in their laboratories. Communication satellites activated jamming systems, while weather monitoring stations began targeting alien ships with sensor arrays that were actually weapon guidance systems. The Vorthak fleet found itself trapped in a carefully prepared killing field, with human forces attacking from every direction. Ships that should have been defenseless were launching missiles, while installations that had seemed harmless were firing energy beams that could cut through heavy armor. The humans had not just prepared for this attack, but had been planning it for decades. "All ships retreat immediately," Gex ordered while watching his tactical display fill with red symbols representing human weapons that were locking onto his vessels. "Signal the fleet to jump to hyperspace on my command," but the humans had anticipated this response as well. The moment the Vorthak ships began charging their jump drives, Captain Nam activated a system that filled local space with interference that made hyperspace travel impossible. The alien fleet was trapped in normal space, where human weapons could reach them and human tactics could be used against them. The first exchange of fire lasted only minutes, but it demonstrated the complete reversal of the tactical situation. Vorthak ships that had expected to face primitive human weapons instead encountered advanced systems that seemed designed specifically to counter their own technology. Human missiles used guidance systems that confused Vorthak point defense, while human energy weapons operated on frequencies that penetrated Vorthak shields. War Commander Gex watched in horror as 3 of his heavy cruisers were destroyed by weapons fire from ships that his intelligence had classified as unarmed transports. The humans were not just fighting back, but were doing so with a level of coordination and technological sophistication that suggested years of preparation specifically for this type of engagement. On the communication screen, Captain Nam continued to look calm and professional as she watched the Vorthak fleet struggle against forces they had never expected to encounter. When she spoke again, her voice carried the authority of someone who knew she held all the advantages in this fight. "War Commander, your ships are now taking casualties, and my orders are to prevent any Vorthak vessel from escaping to report on human defensive capabilities," she said, while more alien ships disappeared from his tactical display. "However, Admiral O has authorized me to offer you one final opportunity to surrender." The offer of surrender, coming from a species that the Vorthak had considered barely worthy of notice, was the final insult in a day full of shocking revelations. Gex looked around his bridge at officers who had never experienced defeat and saw fear in their eyes for the first time in their military careers. The battle for New Sol was over before it had really begun. The Vorthak Third Battle Fleet that had arrived expecting easy victory was instead trapped and outgunned by an enemy they had seriously underestimated. The humans had not just prepared for war, but had built an entire secret military infrastructure designed specifically to counter the tactics and technology of every major alien species. Admiral O opened a channel to the entire Vorthak fleet, and when he spoke, his words were transmitted not just to the alien ships, but to monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Every species that had supported the Council's actions against humanity would hear what he had to say. "This is Admiral O Min of the Human Defense Alliance addressing all alien forces in this system," he announced, while his image was broadcast across multiple frequencies. "You have witnessed the activation of humanity's true defensive capabilities, and I want to make sure you understand what you have seen." The Admiral gestured to the tactical display that showed human ships and installations that had appeared from nowhere to surround the alien fleet. His expression was serious but not hostile as he continued his message. "For over 50 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment," Admiral O explained, while more human vessels continued to decloak around the trapped Vorthak ships. "Every cargo run carried military supplies, and every peaceful settlement contained hidden defenses. You have been looking at our civilization through the lens of your own assumptions, and those assumptions were wrong. The emergency session of the Vorthak High Command took place in a bunker deep beneath their homeworld, where the most powerful warriors of their species gathered to discuss the disaster at New Sol. War Commander Gex stood before his superiors, with his head lowered in shame as he reported the complete destruction of the Third Battle Fleet. Only his flagship had escaped, and even that had suffered severe damage from human weapons. "Explain to us how an entire battle fleet was destroyed." "By cargo ships and mining equipment," demanded Supreme War Leader Thok, while his massive form filled the command chair. Our intelligence reported that the humans had no significant military capabilities. Gex struggled to find words that could explain what he had witnessed at New Sol. The systematic deception that humanity had maintained for decades was beyond anything the Vorthak had thought possible. How could an entire species coordinate such an elaborate military buildup while appearing completely peaceful to alien observers? Supreme Leader. The humans have been preparing for war while pretending to be merchants and farmers, Gex reported while trying to keep his voice steady. Every ship we thought was harmless was actually a disguised warship, and every settlement we believed was defenseless contained hidden weapons. The Vorthak leaders found this explanation difficult to accept. Their own military philosophy was based on displays of strength and open shows of force. The idea that an enemy could hide their true capabilities for generations was alien to their way of thinking, but the evidence was undeniable, and now they faced a threat they had never expected. While the Vorthak struggled to understand what had happened at New Sol, Admiral Kang was implementing the next phase of humanity's response. From his command center on Defender's Rest, he coordinated attacks on alien supply lines that would cripple their ability to continue military operations against human targets. Captain Park G, report your status, Admiral Kang requested while monitoring the movements of human forces throughout the galaxy. The captain commanded a strike group that was approaching a major Nexari technology hub where alien researchers developed the advanced systems that gave their species technological superiority. Admiral, we are in position to begin the assault. On Research Station Alpha. Captain Park replied while her converted civilian ships prepared to engage defenses that the Nexari considered impenetrable. The station's shields and weapons are exactly as our intelligence predicted. The attack on Research Station Alpha demonstrated how thoroughly human spies had infiltrated alien society over the past 50 years. Every detail of the station's defenses had been mapped, and every weakness had been identified by humans who had posed as maintenance workers and research assistants. The Nexari had been so confident in their technological superiority that they had never considered the possibility of human infiltration. Captain Park's ships approached the station using transponder codes that identified them as scheduled supply vessels. The Nexari defenders had no reason to suspect these routine cargo haulers until the moment they deployed hidden weapons and began their attack. The station's shields were designed to stop conventional weapons, but the human assault used tactics and technology specifically developed to counter Nexari defenses. Direct hit on their primary shield generator, reported Lieutenant Moon Hee from her position at the weapons console. Their defensive grid is collapsing exactly as our simulations predicted. The fall of Research Station Alpha sent shockwaves through the Nexari collective as they realized that their most secure facility had been compromised by an enemy they had considered technologically inferior. The humans had not only penetrated their defenses, but had done so using equipment that appeared to be standard commercial vessels. Commander Shin Ai led another strike force against Vorthak supply convoys that were attempting to reinforce their forward positions. Her ships emerged from nebulae and asteroid fields where no alien commander would have thought to look for military assets. The Vorthak had mapped every known human base and patrol route, but they had no idea that humanity had been building hidden strongholds in locations that appeared completely empty. Target the lead transport and disable their communications, Shin Ai ordered, while her ships moved to intercept a convoy carrying weapons and supplies to Vorthak forces near human space. We want to capture their cargo intact and prevent them from warning other convoys. The hit-and-run attacks were devastating to alien morale because they seemed to come from nowhere. Vorthak convoys that should have been safe in their own territory found themselves under attack by human forces that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Nexari research vessels that carried their most advanced technology were boarded by human marines who knew exactly where to find the equipment they wanted to capture. Back on Earth, analyst Wan Min coordinated the intelligence operation that made these precise strikes possible. For decades, human agents had gathered information on alien military movements and technological developments while posing as diplomats and traders. The data they collected had been used to create detailed tactical profiles of every alien species and their military capabilities. Sir, we have confirmation that the Corvin merchant fleet is changing course away from human space, Wan Min reported to Defense Minister Kim Jae. Their neutral status appears to be holding, but they are clearly concerned about getting caught in the fighting. This news was encouraging because it suggested that not all alien species supported the aggressive actions of the Vorthak and Nexari. The Corvin were primarily traders who valued profit over politics, and they had no interest in a war that would disrupt their commercial operations. If humanity could demonstrate that the Council's actions were not supported by all member species, it might be possible to divide the alien alliance. Defense Minister Kim activated the quantum communication system that allowed him to speak directly with human forces throughout the galaxy. The message he transmitted would be received simultaneously by every human settlement and would coordinate the largest military operation in human history. All commanders, this is Defense Minister Kim with authorization for Phase 3 operations, he announced, while secure channels carried his words to dozens of star systems. You are authorized to begin full disclosure protocols and demonstrate the complete extent of our defensive capabilities. The authorization for full disclosure meant that humanity would reveal the true scope of their military preparation to the high galaxy. Hidden bases would decloak and show themselves while disguised warships would drop their civilian appearances. The aliens would see exactly what they were dealing with and understand that humanity had been preparing for this conflict for generations. Admiral O received the Phase 3 authorization while overseeing the reconstruction efforts at New Sol. The Vorthak attack had been repelled with minimal human casualties, but the psychological impact on the alien coalition was immense. The species that had considered humanity weak and divided now faced the reality that they had seriously underestimated their opponents. Begin broadcasting on all frequencies, Admiral O ordered, while communication systems that had been hidden for decades came online throughout human space. I want every alien monitoring station in the galaxy to receive our message. The broadcast that followed would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral O appeared on screens throughout alien space and spoke directly to the leaders of every species that had supported the Council's actions against humanity. This is Admiral O Min of the Human Defense Alliance addressing all alien civilizations, he announced, while tactical displays showed the true extent of human military assets. You have now seen a small demonstration of humanity's defensive capabilities, and I want to ensure you understand what you have witnessed. The displays that accompanied his broadcast showed human installations throughout the galaxy that had been invisible to alien sensors for decades. Mining operations revealed themselves to be military bases, while research stations deployed weapons that rivaled anything in alien arsenals. The scope of human military preparation was staggering, and it had been accomplished while maintaining the appearance of peaceful civilian activity. For over 50 years, humanity has been building a defensive network designed to protect our independence and our way of life. Admiral O continued, while more hidden assets revealed themselves across human space. We did not seek this conflict, but we have been preparing for it since the day we first encountered alien civilization. The revelation continued as human commanders throughout the galaxy received orders to show their true capabilities. Captain Nam led a fleet of warships that had been disguised as merchant vessels, while Commander Ryu activated defense platforms that had been hidden in asteroid belts and nebulae. The aliens were seeing the largest coordinated deception in galactic history. The human colonies are not scattered settlements waiting for protection, Admiral O declared, while the displays showed the interconnected network of bases and installations that defended every human world. We are a unified military alliance that has been disguised as a commercial civilization. You came to conquer victims, but instead you have awakened soldiers. The broadcast ended with a simple message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos as reports of human military victories poured in from across the galaxy. Council leader Velthar stood before an assembly that no longer looked unified as species that had supported. The aggressive actions against humanity began to distance themselves from the failed operation. The reptilian leaders' scales had lost their usual confident green color and now showed the pale yellow of fear and uncertainty. Ambassador Li Hyun entered the chamber wearing the same simple robes he had worn weeks earlier, but his demeanor had changed completely. Where before he had appeared humble and submissive, he now carried himself with the confidence of a representative whose people had just demonstrated their power to the entire galaxy. Behind him walked Captain Nam's son and Admiral O Min, both wearing their true military uniforms instead of the civilian disguises they had maintained for years. "The human delegation requests permission to address the council," Li Hyun announced, while taking his place at the center of the chamber. "We have terms to propose regarding the current conflict." The word terms sent a shock through the alien assembly because it implied that humanity was now negotiating from a position of strength. The species that had been considered barely worthy of council membership was now dictating conditions to civilizations that had controlled the galaxy for millennia. Velthar looked around the chamber and saw that many of the delegates who had enthusiastically supported action against humanity were now avoiding his gaze. The Zentari representative had moved her seat closer to the human delegation, while the Corvan ambassador was frantically sending messages to his government requesting new instructions. "The council recognizes the human delegation," Velthar said, while his voice carried none of its usual authority. "What terms does humanity propose?" Li Hyun activated a holographic display that showed the current military situation throughout the galaxy. Red indicators marked the locations where human forces had destroyed or captured alien military assets, while blue symbols showed human installations that had revealed themselves after decades of concealment. The scope of human military capability was overwhelming, and it had been hidden in plain sight for generations. "Humanity demands the immediate withdrawal of all alien military forces from human space," Li Hyun announced, while the display showed Vorthak and Nexari fleets retreating from positions they had held for years. "All alien ships currently in human territory have 24 hours to depart, or they will be treated as hostile forces." The first demand was followed by others that made it clear humanity was no longer willing to accept the subordinate position the Council had tried to impose. Human colonies would govern themselves without alien oversight, and human ships would travel freely throughout the galaxy without submitting to alien inspection. The trade restrictions and communication monitoring that the Council had imposed were declared null and void. Furthermore, humanity demands reparations for the unprovoked attack on our territories, Admiral O added, while new displays showed the damage inflicted by Vorthak forces at New Sol. "The species responsible for this aggression will compensate the families of human casualties and pay for the reconstruction of damaged facilities." War Commander Gex rose from his seat with obvious reluctance and spoke for the Vorthak delegation. His proud warrior species had never been forced to pay reparations to anyone, but the alternative was continued war against an enemy that had already demonstrated superior tactical capabilities. "The Vorthak Empire acknowledges responsibility for the unprovoked attack," Gex said, while his tusks seemed smaller than they had appeared in previous sessions. "We agree to pay compensation as demanded and withdraw all military forces from human space." The Nexari representative Prime Node Zaris followed with her own statement of acceptance. The technological superiority that her species had enjoyed for centuries meant nothing when humanity had developed countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize Nexari advantages. The Nexari Collective agrees to the human terms and formally recognizes human sovereignty over all territories currently under human control, Zaris announced, while her crystalline form seemed dimmer than usual. "We request the return of our research personnel captured during recent operations." Li Hyun smiled slightly at this request and nodded to Admiral O, who activated another display, showing Nexari scientists and technicians who had been taken prisoner during human raids on alien facilities. The prisoners appeared to be in good health, but they were clearly being held in secure facilities. "The captured personnel will be returned unharmed as soon as the formal peace agreement is signed," Admiral O replied. "However, humanity reserves the right to retain any technology or information that poses a threat to our security." The negotiations continued for hours as the Council worked to establish a new framework for relations with humanity. The species that had tried to impose their will on human civilization now found themselves accepting human terms and acknowledging human equality. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently, and everyone knew it. Captain Nam provided military briefings that demonstrated how thoroughly human intelligence had penetrated alien society. Every major alien military installation had been mapped, and every important technological development had been monitored by human agents. The Aliens realized that their security had been compromised for decades by people they had considered harmless. The human intelligence network extends throughout Council space, Captain Nam explained, while showing the locations of human operatives who had been gathering information for years. We know the capabilities and intentions of every major alien military force. This revelation was perhaps more shocking than the military demonstrations because it meant that humanity had been playing a much deeper game than anyone had suspected. While alien leaders had debated human expansion, human agents had been learning everything there was to know about alien civilization and preparing for the day when that knowledge would be needed. The Zentari delegate spoke for many of the smaller species when she addressed the human delegation with obvious relief in her voice. The peaceful Zentari had never supported aggressive action against humanity, but had been unable to oppose the Vorthak-Nexari alliance. The Zentari Republic welcomes this demonstration of human capability, she announced while looking directly at Li Hayun. We propose formal alliance agreements between our species based on mutual respect and shared interests. Similar offers came from other species that had remained neutral or had been coerced into supporting the anti-human coalition. The galaxy was realigning itself around the new reality of human power, and every species wanted to be on the winning side of this transformation. President Park Young appeared via quantum communication from Earth to address the Council directly. The human leader had spent her entire career working toward this moment, when humanity would finally be recognized as an equal partner in galactic civilization rather than a junior member to be controlled by others. The human species has never sought to dominate other civilizations, President Park announced, while her image filled the main screen. We prepared for war, so that we could live in peace, and we hid our strength not from cowardice but from wisdom. The President's words carried the weight of decades of human planning and sacrifice. Generations of humans had lived with the knowledge that their species might one day face extinction at alien hands, and they had devoted their lives to preventing that outcome. The revelation of human military capability was the culmination of the greatest deception in galactic history. Every species in this galaxy now has a choice, President Park continued, while her steady gaze seemed to look directly at each alien delegate. You can respect our sovereignty and work with us as equals, or you can learn why humanity has always excelled at warfare. The choice was not really a choice at all, because the demonstration of human capability had made it clear that continued aggression would result in disaster for any species foolish enough to challenge human determination. The aliens had seen what happened to the Vorthak Third Battle Fleet, and none of them wanted to face similar destruction. Minister Kim Jae took over the final phase of the negotiations as humanity established the framework for their new role in galactic politics. The Human Defense Initiative would maintain the military capabilities that had been revealed while also offering protection to smaller species that chose to ally themselves with human interests. The galaxy has room for many different civilizations, but it has no room for those who threaten the freedom of others, Minister Kim declared while signing the formal documents that established humanity's new status. We will defend our allies as fiercely as we defend ourselves. The treaty that emerged from these negotiations represented a complete transformation of galactic politics. Humanity was recognized as a major power with the right to maintain military forces and defend their territory. The Council's authority over human affairs was formally ended, and new trade agreements established humanity as an equal partner in galactic commerce. Admiral Kang oversaw the transition as human forces began the careful process of returning to their civilian disguises. The threat had passed, but the network of hidden defenses would remain in place as insurance against future aggression.